Okay, this is my audience. Okay. 4 score and 7 years ago, one of the most famous quotes of all time. But how many people actually know where the quote came from? Or what the following speech even means? Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address on a solemn day in a cemetery as a plea towards the nation as a whole. There was no better person than Abraham Lincoln to give this speech, as he resurrected a broken nation, and through this speech sparked a hope for a born-again nation to come together once again. Abraham Lincoln was elected as president in 1860, just before the start of the Civil War. He knew what was to come as he entered D.C. However, no one knew how bad the war would become and all that Lincoln would have to do to try to end it. Abraham Lincoln, being a Republican and against slavery, had to try his best to work towards the betterment of the North and South equally. Although Abraham Lincoln was not military educated, he did an outstanding job conducting a union and maintaining the nation as a whole. As a Republican, Lincoln still did all he could to try to preserve the peace between the northern and the southern states, but it was not enough. The Civil War led to devastation among the United States, and Lincoln tried to revive the nation, but the war took over. The Civil War created a divide in the United States, as almost all of the southern states had seceded to form the Confederate States. Lincoln had to resort to extreme measures, such as the Emancipation Proclamation, as he tried to get the Confederate States to return to the United States. The speech took place a few months after the war ended at the cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, for all the soldiers who had died in the war. The speech was the start of getting the nation to come back together as one. The Gettysburg Address was just what the people needed to hear at the cemetery that day, as it finally started to bond them together once again. Lincoln's method to deliver this message was unexpected, and it seemed as if his speech was over before it even started, but that was all it took. A few short words at the cemetery that day spoke to the nation more than the entire war did over those 4 years. In his opening statements, Lincoln includes the phrase, "All men are created equal," which explains that segregation and the reason for the war went against the basis of the nation. He then addresses those who lost their lives in the bloody battle and says that their work will never be forgotten, and what they had sacrificed in the war is bigger than anything the people of the nation still standing could ever do. But then Lincoln proposes a challenge to the people of the United States, compelling them to honor those who died and to not let their sacrifices be for nothing. He pleads the nation to come together so that it does not fall apart. On December 10, 2013, Gerard N. Magliocca wrote in the Opinionator that Lincoln's persuasive speech was not only used to rejoin two nations, but to influence the confederacy of the ideas and values to which Lincoln had now committed to the nation. This speech is the foundation to the new nation, as Lincoln leads the way for the people to unite as one and rebuild a more stable nation. The Gettysburg Address explains that the nation is doomed if it is not repaired, and gave an insight to the people that allowed them to see what needed to be done. Abraham Lincoln's compelling speech created a hope for a new start for the United States. His request to honor the soldiers who died and to revive the nation allowed the people to come together and aim towards restoration. Lincoln's final words were all that he needed to sway his audience as he proclaimed, "This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." This statement, now known across the United States, stood as groundbreaking testimony for the nation to come together, for if it did not, it would not survive and continue to survive, which is addressed in the editorial board of the New York Times on November 17, 2013. They wrote, "He was there not only to speak our thoughts aloud, but to give them language so moving that they could continue to resound all these years later." The Gettysburg Address proved to be monumental at the end of the Civil War and continues to be to this day.